Since the early 2000s, Disney has been trying everything in their power to recapture, and all of these films were buried and forgotten about. 2020's Artemis Fowl is a prime example of this idea, going straight to Disney Plus instead. So let's examine this film to find out where it all went wrong, and how a film with such promising source material failed so badly. Alright, strap in, because the history behind 2020's Artemis Fowl is a very long and complicated story. Our story begins in the year 2000, when Miramax Films bought the rights to the popular young adult book series Artemis Fowl, written by Irish author Eoin Colfer. They actually got the film rights before the original book came out in 2001. Now, I never read the books myself, but I remember them being a big deal in elementary school, as it seemed like every kid was reading them. The book tells the story of 12-year-old criminal mastermind, Artemis Fowl, who kidnaps a fairy and holds her for ransom in an effort to restore his family's fortune. In 2001, director Lawrence Gutterman was attached to the project, who was the mastermind behind such classics like Son of the Mask and Cats and Dogs. This choice did not bode well with fans of the series, as an online petition was actually created to prevent him from helming the project. Here's a funny quote from that petition that I wanted to include. "We believe the director be an adequate choice for films such as Cats and Dogs and Son of the Mask, but we find him inadequate for a film of this magnitude." This film by Gutterman ultimately fell through, and that version of the film was scrapped. This was in part due to Harvey and Bob Weinstein leaving Miramax and the Walt Disney Company, so there were disputes over who owned the rights. But around the same time in 2006, the adaptation landed with Jim Sheridan, which was a major jump up from the past director, since Sheridan was actually Irish and had several Oscar nominations under his belt. Sheridan worked alongside his daughter Naomi and the original author, Eoin Colfer, to write a new spec script for the film. The project remained in limbo for several years, until there was news in 2011, when it was reported that Sheridan was in talks with Saoirse Ronan to play a lead in the film. But 2 years later, the whole project started over from scratch, as Disney announced they were planning on a new film adaptation of the first 2 books in the series. This version was going to be penned by Michael Goldenberg, who is probably most well known for writing the screenplays for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix and Green Lantern. However, this version was also dumped, and Disney restarted one more time. Finally, in 2014, the film got its final director, with Ireland's very own Kenneth Branagh. Here's a quote from Entertainment Weekly on Branagh's involvement. "Before signing on to direct, Branagh reviewed the previous scripts and found them trying to make the thing something it wasn't," he says, explaining that he went on to develop a plan to make the movie happen. First, he wanted to return to the source material. That's Eoin Colfer. Kenneth Branagh kept the Irish theme going when he brought on Irish playwright Conor McPherson to help pen the script. On September 12, 2017, Disney announced that the film adaptation would be released on August 9th, 2019. And a couple months after that, they also announced the cast. In the lead role, we got Dublin-born newcomer Ferdia Shaw, and the rest of the cast was filled out with seasoned actors like Judi Dench, Josh Gad, and Colin Farrell. However, Colin Farrell was added to the cast during reshoots. Principal photography took place in March of 2018, with them filming on location in the United Kingdom, Italy, and Vietnam. They built Fowl Manor at Longcross Studios in Surrey and intended for it to last for the rest of the sequels. But obviously, those sequels never happened, and it was torn down in 2020. After 20 years in production hell and the project bouncing around to different filmmakers, the movie was completed and ready to drop in theaters in August of 2019. However, that date was pushed back to May of 2020 due to the huge Disney and Fox merger that was finalized in 2019. Nothing to fear. I'm sure nothing big happened in early 2020 which would affect the release of this film.
It's feeding time.
Instead of waiting out the pandemic to drop this blockbuster, Disney decided to relegate it to the sidelines and send it straight to streaming on Disney+. According to Variety, the film was the 18th most watched straight-to-streaming movie of the year 2020. And after 2 decades in the making, the film quietly disappeared, never to be spoken of again. There was absolutely no buzz surrounding this movie when it came out, and I think it's because Disney completely abandoned the project as they had no hope in it at all. I've always prided myself on being up to date on movie news, and I try to follow all the big releases, but I have to admit, I had no idea this movie existed until recently. Which is crazy, because this film's budget was $125 million. Let me repeat, $125 million for a film that just went straight to streaming. This really feels like a film that should have came out in the late 2000s to early 2010s, right around the boom for young adult novels on the big screen. If it would have been released around the same time as Twilight, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, Divergent, maybe it could have had potential. But unfortunately, this movie was stuck in production hell during that time. It definitely fit the mold of these other young adult films. And there are over 10 books, so there was tons of source material to pull from. However, we may never see those books on the big screen after this film pulled the source material's name through the mud. So far, with all the films I've covered in this series, these are movies that Disney at least tried to make a big thing. But with this film, it seemed like Disney lost all interest in the project once it was finished, and once they had already spent that $125 million. This is probably because the film turned out terrible. I mean, just look at the reviews. The film currently boasts a staggering 8% critic and 20% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 1.3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. It seems like pretty much everyone hates it across the board, from people like me who have no familiarity with the source material to die-hard fans of the books. Many fans find this adaptation downright insulting for how much they changed from the books and made every aspect worse. I think the pandemic really saved Disney with this one, because it gave them an excuse to dump the film on their streaming platform and not be forced to send it to the theaters to bomb. Because I bet if this went to theaters, it would have crashed and burned terribly, and the reaction to it would have been probably way worse. By throwing it on streaming, they were able to hide the film from the general public, as streaming movies don't get the big theatrical rollout that proper blockbusters have. And with no box office receipts, this movie technically can't be called a box office flop, and it won't be added to the growing list of other box office failures. Exclusive Disney Plus film that you couldn't watch anywhere else is no longer on Disney Plus. Disney basically made a $125 million mistake, and now they are burying it like it never happened. But it did happen, and I won't let them forget, because this movie is now burned into my brain and will haunt me until the end of time. A couple weeks ago, I made a video on Assassin's Creed, and I stated that it was important to watch bad movies like that one, because it gives you more appreciation for good movies. After watching Artemis Fowl, I rescind that statement. I never want to watch a movie like this again. On my Letterboxd, I only have 3 films total that I have ever rated half a star. Those are Men, R.I.P.D., and Artemis Fowl. So just know I mean it when I say I hated this film. Kenneth, my man, what the hell happened here? I know you know how to make good movies. I've seen Much Ado About Nothing. That's like my favorite Shakespeare adaptation. It just felt like no one cared in this movie. From the direction, to the writing, to the actors, to the special effects, it's all an incomprehensible mess. I kept waiting for the movie to start and for the characters to go on a big adventure. But as the film went on and the characters just stayed at the house, I got more and more disinterested. The film shows us these cool locations in the Hollow Earth or whatever it is, but we are relegated to stay in the Fowl Manor the entire time. I'm not sure if that's what it's like in the books. I'm guessing if it is, it's probably executed a lot better. Maybe this story would have been better suited for a TV series or something, because the plot of this movie felt like it never got started. One of the most baffling parts of this movie is the characters. We never really learn anything about our main characters aside from surface level information. And some characters, we don't learn anything at all. Like, I can't even tell you the name of the main villain in this movie or what their goals were because it was never shown to us. I know he kidnapped Artemis' dad for some MacGuffin, but I don't know why he wants this magic item or what he's going to use it for. And while I'm on the topic, what the hell does the Oculus even do? Oculus? I don't even know. It was never explained. All we're told is that it's a super powerful magical item that everybody wants, but we don't know what the hell it does. I'm going insane. I'm going insane. And then there's the character of Juliet, who just shows up for no reason and is not explained at all and then proceeds to do nothing. Like, why were they even in the film? They don't have a purpose in the narrative, and they don't influence our main character's arc at all. And don't get me started on Artemis Fowl. He is the most boring, obnoxious, unlikable protagonist I've ever seen in a kid's movie. It really feels like I'm bullying the kid but I'm trying not to. All these criticisms are pointed at the writing and the directing, not the actor himself. Not to mention all the ridiculous voices everyone's using in this film. The Batman impressions from Judi Dench and Josh Gad make it feel like no one is trying or taking this film seriously. I think the cast and crew realized the film was doomed and just started doing weird stuff to keep themselves entertained. That's really what Josh's Gad character is like. I don't know what the hell he was thinking in this movie. The scene that I remember most is this nightmare-inducing sequence where he unhinges his jaw, says it's feeding time, and proceeds to eat dirt. It's like something out of a horror movie. Legit scared me when I first watched this movie. I watched this film a week ago and that image is still burned into my head. It's like I watched the video from The Ring or something. I can't talk about this film anymore. I'm done. The more I think about this movie, the more pissed off I get. We're just gonna wrap it up, alright? We're gonna wrap it up. I'm not sure if I can even call this film a failed next big thing, because Disney abandoned this movie before it even came out, deciding to cut their losses and bury their mistakes. Artemis Fowl is yet another example of the House of Mouse getting their greedy little hands on a popular IP and proceeding to mess it up. All the pieces were there, with a talented cast and crew, and I don't know what the hell happened. It had so much potential for a great film franchise, but it ended up being a legendary failure. What are your thoughts on Artemis Fowl? Have you seen it? If you have seen it, I'm so sorry. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, consider checking out the others in the series and maybe even subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. This has been Tom from Eisenhower Productions, and thank you so much for watching. See you next week.